Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Ginger Gamers Tech. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing two things. First we're going to review a little kit that I bought off of Amazon. I just want to kind of give you guys an idea of how good this kit is. Is it necessary? Does it have all the parts that you need, etc.? So this particular one, I'll post a link to it in the description. It comes with supposedly just about everything you need to do the Joycon Joystick replacement. Thanks for giving our family-run business a shot. Your order and reviews matter more than you can imagine. Sincerely, Jess. And that's definitely handwritten, as you can see, because it has a smudge on it. Didn't quite wait for the ink to dry, so thank you. So what we have here is two brand new joysticks, which we're going to use to replace the drifting ones. The Joy-Cons that we're going to be repairing today are actually Woogie's. If you go over to her channel is actually Woogie and Corey. And she does some Among Us videos as well as some chinchilla facts. These are her Joy-Con, and we're going to be repairing these today. So I actually got her a present, which I want her to play on the Nintendo Switch for Christmas. And unfortunately, she's not going to have very much fun when her Joy-Con are drifting. So we're going to get these repaired before Christmas so that we don't have to worry about that. Now, inside of the kit, it has several rubber caps for the joysticks. We're going to put those aside for now. You don't necessarily need those. On the edge of this red one is a bit of an extra. I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult to cut that off with an X-Acto knife, I should say. But, you know, just a note. Looks like it came with two red, two black, and two blue. That's pretty cool. It came with a suction cup, which you're not going to need for the Joy-Con repair, but this would come in handy if you were going to, say, replace a screen. The whole purpose of this is you would heat up the glue on your screen, and you're going to suction cup that, and then you're going to use the suction cup to gently pull the screen up once you have the glue hot enough. So again, not really something you're going to need for the Joy-Con repair, but nice to have if you do intend to do repairs. It comes with a plastic spudger. This is a very nice tool for separating clips. So for instance, if you have a device which is specifically made for made to be put together without screws. Like for instance, if you take a look at my NVIDIA Shield repair video, the NVIDIA Shield TV itself is not put together with screws. It actually only has clips, so this would come in very handy for those types of devices. And when we take this apart, what you're basically going to do is you're going to take this, you're just going to wedge it in here in the little grooves, and you're going to very gently pry this apart. So next we have a little brush, and that actually would come in very handy for getting some of the dust out of electronics. I'm not sure we're going to need this on the Joy-Con itself, but definitely handy to have. Then we have our Y-wing screwdrivers. So this is our Y-bit 2.0 and then our Y-bit 1.5. So we've got both Y-bits. That's the security bit choice for Nintendo. And then we have the Phillips head 2.0 and the Phillips head 1.5. These are also going to come in handy for you. It looks like they are magnetized. Are they? Yes, so those are magnetized. Yep, all of them are magnetized. Magnetized screwdrivers are going to help you immensely when you're doing repair projects. Sometimes you are going to need non-magnetized screwdrivers. Trust me when I say that sometimes they can be a pain in the butt. So it might be nice to have at least one non-magnetic screwdriver around for those moments where the magnet is causing issues. We have another spludger here. This is a different kind of spludger. So I actually kind of prefer this one, more like the guitar pick kind of a spludger as opposed to this one. So it's nice that they included both of those. And then we have a very small pair of pliers, very, very pointy. Again, I've actually cut myself on these before. Good for picking up those tiny screws from the inside of the device when they fall. Comes with a little a little not stab yourself protector there. So it looks like we have some extra screws. That's actually very nice in case you happen to lose a couple, which, trust me, when you're dealing with screws that are this small, you can and you will. I definitely recommend that you have a magnetic screw plate to put your screws in, because that's going to help you not lose it. And even if you happen to knock this magnetic screw plate on the floor, most of the time the screws will stay inside of the pan. And then on top of that, we also have, these are the catches. So if you have a problem with a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con that is clicking off of the device, essentially it won't stay on. Sometimes what that is there is a very tiny piece of plastic here that you can just barely see, and when you press this button it goes in. That piece of plastic gets damaged, and so your Joy-Con won't stay on. This is a metal replacement that goes in that same exact spot and allows your Joy-Con to click in better. Now there's two schools of thought on this. The plastic one is protecting your Nintendo Switch, so if your Nintendo Switch gets damaged, it'll be a little bit harder to repair than to repair this one. So when you use the metal ones, if for some reason you were to drop it, there's a very good chance that the metal is obviously not going to break. And instead, the connector on the Switch is going to break. Which is probably why they went with plastic in the first place, so that in the event that you drop your Switch, it was the Joy-Con that broke and not the Nintendo Switch, which I think is a good choice. But maybe they made it just a little bit too weak. Maybe they could have gone with a little bit of harder plastic, I'm not sure. And last thing we have in here, what is this? A little tip card. Comes with a YouTube video, how to fix Nintendo Switch drifting analog stick, and goes over the kind of things that you have. Also tells you that you need to calibrate the joystick once you've finished, and restart it in the calibration interface. Okay. So it comes with a little case here. I'm not really sure that I would end up keeping all this in there, but maybe. As long as it manages to hold everything in there without too much trouble. I find a lot of the times with stuff like this, once you take it out, you never really know exactly how it went back in there in the first place. So it's a little bit difficult to reposition everything. I don't know, maybe it's not that difficult. And then still have it close, which can be a pain in the butt. So I mean, the joysticks aren't going to go in there because they're going to be replaced. And I might as well replace these two while I'm inside the device. And then of course the rubber things aren't going to go in there because they're going to go on the Joy-Con. So, I mean, that's not bad. Alright, so we're actually going to use this kit to repair the Joy-Con. I think that's only fair, given that's what their purpose is. Alright, so we're going to start with the left Joy-Con here. And I don't believe there's any difference in the joysticks. No, it doesn't look like there's any difference in the joysticks. Alright, so the first thing we've got to do is we've got to remove the 1, 2, 3, 4 Y-wing screws on the back. Now, I'm not sure which bit that is. Let's try the 2.0 bit, and let's see if that works. So that seems to do the trick nicely. All right, so I want to position my, my giant Blue Hawk magnetic screw tray here underneath, because that way if I drop anything, it will be very easy to reclaim it. Now, I will warn you guys in advance before I go any further, there are a lot of very delicate, and I really mean this, very delicate ribbon cables in here. You need to be extremely careful when you open this up. No jerky movements, very slow, and you've got to disconnect those cables before you go any further. You can't get away with just popping this thing open and leaving the cables attached. Trust me, I've broken one already myself, and let's see if I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, right when you open it up, you see, there's 1, 2 ribbon cables, and both of them are annoyingly placed so that you can't move this very much. So you have to be careful right off the get-go about damaging these cables. Now, I'm going to go ahead and remove the ones that I can actually get to. Let's see here. But before we do that, the first thing that we really want to do is we want to disconnect the battery cable. The battery cable is actually quite easy to disconnect, and I'm going to show you here. This is the actual connector right here, and it actually pulls up quite easily, so we're just going to take the screwdriver and we're going to gently pull backward like this, because that's the way that this actually connects. And then it pops right up. Now our Joy-Con is disconnected, and we don't have to worry about it actually we don't have to worry about it crossing any wires while we're doing the repair. All right, so the next step here is to remove these ribbon cables ever so gently. There is a small raisable piece on the back side of the ribbon connector. And what you do is you very gently lift that up. All right. And I'm not sure if you can actually see this or not, because it's a very small device. But right here, there's a small little flap. Let me see if I can. You see how that little flap moves up and down? So when it's all the way down, it is in the locked position. And when it is all the way up, it is in the open position. And when it is in the open position, you can pull the cable out. All right. The other one is hidden underneath of the battery, and it's a little bit more difficult to get to. So to get to that one, you're actually going to have to remove the battery, which is one screw right here, and this is going to be a Phillips head. So one screw here, and the other one I believe is underneath of our shoulder button. So that's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. The shoulder button has a spring in it, and you don't want to lose that, okay? So be very careful not to lose the spring for the shoulder button when you remove it. All right, so we need the Phillips head. All right, there's our Phillips. Came with the kit. Now, when you're doing this, you should be making a mental note of which screws go in what places. So far, all of the longer black screws, which are the Y-wing, are our external screws. And if you've noticed, our internal screws are silver. All right. And let's see here. Where's that last screw hiding at? Now, like I said, there's ribbon cables all over the place in here. Be very gentle. Don't go out of your way to, rip anything up. And speaking of ripping things up, I actually do remember that the other screws that hold down that plate are underneath the battery terminal. So we're actually going to have to use our little spludger tool here, and we're going to gently pry up our battery. Now our battery is being held down by glue, essentially. And if you give it a nice firm push with the spludger, it comes up. All right, so there's our battery. And then we have our screws here. So only 2 of these screws are holding down the battery terminal plate. The other 2 are actually holding down the circuit board or the joystick. I can't remember which. It's been a little while since I've been inside one of these Joy-Con. All right. All right, so now when you pull this up, you're going to have the cable for the right trigger. All right, that's going to be in your way. Now, you don't necessarily need to disconnect this, because at this point you have access to the joystick. All right. However, there is a small ribbon cable here, which I do recommend that you remove. This is the one that goes to the start button, or the minus button, depending on which Joy-Con you're taking apart. This one actually runs over the screw for the joystick. You see how this ribbon cable right here goes over that screw? We don't want to break that ribbon cable or mess it up in any way, shape, or form. So what we're going to do is we're going to very gently lift up that same piece. There we go, and that's lifted up. You can see that it wiggles back and forth here. All right, and then now that we have that, we're going to very gently pull that ribbon cable out. All right, and that will give us access to the other joystick screw. All right, now we're going to go ahead and remove the joystick itself. There's another screw. And then last but not least, all right, now there's one more thing holding the joystick in, which is the ribbon cable itself. So again, like the other ribbon cables, there's a small black piece that flaps upward. All right, make sure you have that up before you go yanking. All right, you're going to push the joystick up ever so gently. You're going to give the ribbon cable a tug to remove that. Now do be careful, as there is a small black plastic piece which will try and come up with the joystick. You want to make sure that stays, okay? All right, so then we're going to put this aside. This is our bad joystick. We want to make sure that's separate from our others. We don't want to mix them up. And then we're going to take one of the new joysticks and we're going to put that in its place. Make sure that you lift up the ribbon cable that was in the way, all right, so that the ribbon cable doesn't stay in the way. You don't want to accidentally put this on top of the ribbon cable. All right. All right, and then with this held down, you're going to put those 2 screws back, okay? So 1 and 2. All right, so let's get that done real quick. We're going to do the easier one first, which is the one that goes into the hole that's not covered up. All right, now because the joystick is something that you're actually going to place pressure on, I do advise that you make sure you get these screws tight. The reason is because as you place pressure on the screws, you will actually push the joystick sort of outward, and you don't want the joystick to move. In general, the whole point of that joystick is that it's stationary. and you're moving the actual joystick. So if the actual joystick housing is moving, you will not have a good time. Now granted, this is not going into metal, this is going into plastic. So I do advise that you don't over tighten it either. So this this part actually does get a little bit tricky because you need to make sure that you are tightening it with just the right torque. And there went my screw. Well, it's a good thing they came up with replacements. This little cable is obnoxious to get around. It seems to almost deliberately get in the way. All right, so what you want to do is you want to just very gently sort of push down on the joystick while also pushing up on the housing, if that makes any sense. And then give it another little tighten, because you want to make sure that the joystick is as flush as possible with the housing when you're putting the screws in. That way the screws are getting as tight as they can without you applying stress to the screw hole. Now what we need to do is redo our ribbon cables. So first, let's go ahead and put the joystick ribbon cable back in place. This one is a little bit obnoxious. I probably should have done this first. Come on, little buddy. Go to your home. You know you want to go to your home. All right. And then once you are convinced that you have it in far enough, which let me tell you, there has been so many times where I thought I had it in all the way and I did not. And I know that's a dirty joke, so please forgive me. And then I had to open the entire device back up to reseat those cables. And it was not a fun time having to reopen the entire device to do that, especially after I ended up breaking one of the ribbon cables. And so again, please, 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 be gentle with the ribbon cables. I am not responsible if you break one of these ribbon cables because you go in like some sort of Greek god named Hercules and you rip them from their housings and then they won't go back. Because trust me, if you are not gentle, it will happen. I know because I did it. All right. Let's all laugh at me. Feel free. But just remember, it can happen to you too. All right. So now that we have that joystick in place, we have the ribbon cables reattached, we need to screw our screws back in. Now, one of the easiest ways to get your screw if you lose it is to use your magnetic screw tray. So that's what we are going to do right now. I know we have extra screws, but I just want to show you. So we're going to take this tray and we're going to sort of rub it over the ground where we think the screw might be. All right. And then when you pick it up, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the bottom of the tray and you're going to see if the screw attached. So there we go. So we managed to find it with the magnet. All right. So next, let's get that screw in its hole. All right, so what I want to do now is I actually want to replace that little clip. So the clip is actually located behind this. All right, so you're only going to have to remove one screw for this. Just one screw, and it's right here. And that little metal clip or the little plastic clip is right behind it. need a smaller bit. So it looks like this one is a 1.5. It's a good thing that it came with both screwdrivers. I actually can't stand doing this one because this ribbon cable right here is the one that I broke. And trust me when I tell you, I do not want to break it again. All right, so I need to get a good grip here, and that is not working. Let's try the 2.0 again. Maybe I was mistaken. Ah, okay, it is the 2.0. Never mind. It's just very, very tight. Like, it's just not... I feel like I could strip this screw extremely easily if I'm not careful. Either that or the screwdrivers are just not the right size. Is there such a thing as a 1.75? It really does feel like it's in between somewhere. Like it's not... I mean, it's not a Y bit, is it? I really doubt it's a Y bit. Y bit does nothing. Sorry, I know you guys can't see this, but I'm just trying to get enough grip so that when I push the screwdriver, it's going deep into the actual screw grooves. And there we go. Because I don't want to lose it. If you don't, a lot of the times when it comes to stripping, you strip it because it's not in there all the way. Like it doesn't quite get into the grooves all the way deep down. I've noticed that some screwdrivers are fat, some screwdrivers are pointy. Let's see here, what am I missing? I know that this is supposed to come up. Let's see if we can pry this upward. Man, that spudger just broke instantly. I didn't even really apply any pressure, to be honest. I think the piece is stuck in there now. I'm definitely gonna say the spudger is not the best. Maybe I would have better luck if I just used my fingernail. I swear I've done this before, guys. I promise. Now, that is not working. I don't think she actually has any trouble with the Joycon clips. So we're gonna hold off on those. I'll do that another day if I need to, because this one is not budging. And we're gonna go ahead and put this back together. All right, so the next step to put this back together is number one, I gotta put that screw back in that I took out. And that's gonna be a pain in the butt because it wouldn't even come out very well. Might be shooting myself in the foot here because might be very difficult to get that screw back out now that I've stripped it, or at least I feel like I did. All right, so the little white bar is still up, so we're going to very gently put this back in its ribbon cable location. Now, one of the things about these ribbon cables is a lot of the times they'll have a small piece of plastic right before the metal pins, or they'll have little flaps on either side. So depending on which one it has, whether it's got the flaps or whether it has the little plastic piece, that's usually your indication of how to push it in. So if it has the plastic piece, usually you kind of get your little fingernail or whatever tool you're using kind of on top of that plastic piece, and you kind of gently nudge it into place. Or if you happen to be using the one that has the little flaps, so you're going to interchange back and forth between the two flaps until you're all the way in. Now, and then once you're in, you're going to go ahead and push that little white flap down, locking it into your position. If you're asking how I broke this one, believe it or not, it actually snapped in half. I guess it folds too much. All right, so now we're going to put our battery back in. And remember if that's correct. Pretty sure it was like this, actually, because there's a little notch here for the wire. All right, we have one more screw to put in the battery terminal location. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, and then we're going to plug our battery back in. So with this one, it's actually really easy. You just kind of sit the battery terminal over top of its connector, and then you just kind of gently push down on it because it clips down into the connector. Makes it quite easy. And of course, mine doesn't want to behave. There we go. All right, so now we have the joystick replaced. Everything is good on the inside, but now we need to clip it back together. All right, so you just kind of gently fold this back over, and you'll notice that there's a groove here on the edges, here and here, and you're going to gently push that groove underneath of the edge. You see that? I'm not sure if you can see that where I'm pushing it over the edge. So sort of right there. All right, and you're going to just gently push that back into location. All right, now once it's together, it should sort of clip a little bit. It's not going to be complete. And then you're going to take your original Y-wing screws and you're going to put them back in. I will advise you that this one in particular right here, don't over tighten it, especially if you're changing out shells, because I have noticed that if you over tighten this screw, your plus or minus button will stop working. And you can tell whether you've over tightened it or not, because if you look very closely, you see do you see the gap here, right here? If you tighten it too much, I've noticed that the gap completely disappears almost. So you want to loosen it up just a hair, all right? And the other four, or the other three, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and tighten those as tight as they will go. All right, this one is finished. The lights are on, which means I have connected the battery, and we will check the joystick later. Joystick is nice and tight though, which I do like. All right, so here is the right Joy-Con with the plus button. For expedience, we're going to go a little bit faster on this one. This one is going to be a touch more complicated because this particular controller is the one with the IR sensor. The IR sensor is an added annoyance. All right, so again, we start by removing our 4 screws. And now take your spludger and gently around the edges, pop those clips. And now you have the clips popped. Again, please be very careful with the ribbon cables. You're going to open this up, and the first thing you're going to see again is 2 ribbon cables. All right. So just be careful. Be very careful. All right. So you're going to fold it upward like this in the direction of the ribbon cables. All right. And you notice here we have a whole extra device here, whole extra of annoyance essentially. So we're going to take our 2.0 Phillips, and we're going to gently, again, pry up the battery terminal. All right. Make sure you don't include any other wires when you're doing this. Last thing you want to do is accidentally rip out something else. And there are actually, I think, another set of wires in here that go to the IR sensor. All right. So now our battery cable is removed, and it is stuck inside the wires for the IR sensor. Well, that is amazing. I mean, it's not just like fed through it. I think it's actually stuck. Oh no, okay, there we go. All right, so like we learned last time, the battery, there are actual connectors under the battery. So we're going to pry up the battery again, like we did last time. You do want to be very careful because on this particular model, there is a, let me show you as close as I can here. There's an antenna. That is your antenna, and that does pop out very easily, especially when you remove the battery. All right, so let's get this battery out so that we can actually make some progress here. Come on. Now, if you heard that, that was the popping of the little stickers, which is what we want. All right, now we have our battery removed. And we didn't need to remove the battery. There's no screws underneath of this one. Well, well, well. Let's go ahead and just pop that back in then. There's no reason to remove it if we don't have to remove it. All right. So we got 1 screw here, just like with the other one. And then it looks like we have 2 screws, one here and here, that are sort of underneath, or rather beside, the shoulder button. All right, let's see how that behaves. So we're going to try and lift up the battery compartment. And it looks like our antenna is actually preventing that. So what I would like to do is actually remove it from the board, because I remember last time I had a pain, it was a pain in the butt getting it to put itself back into the battery compartment, if that makes any sense. Now on this one, the shoulder button ribbon cable is actually much shorter than on the other one. The other one, it was actually quite easy to maneuver around. This one, it is not going to be the case. Now you could theoretically turn this ever so slightly, just so you have access to only the joystick. But do be very careful because you risk damaging the ribbon cable. All right. I'm actually going to do it by this method because I'm fairly confident in my skills here. So the first thing we got to do here is remove the joystick ribbon cable. And then we need to remove these 2 screws for the joystick. All right, and again, watch out for that little black sort of circular piece that's around the joystick. Make sure you don't pry that up as well. Make sure you separate the old joystick away from your new one. They do have a slightly different color ribbon cable on this set, so if you pay attention to that, you should be fine. All right, let's go ahead and connect the ribbon cable first this time, since it is actually easier to connect that first. Let's see if we can use the plastic spudger for that. Push our cable connector down. Like something's wrong here, like it's not going all the way in. Is something in the way? Doesn't seem like it. Alright, let's go ahead and get this screwed down and let's see how it feels after that. That screwed in. Let's get the second one. Oh Lord, drop the screw. Let's pour it back into our little magnetic bin. Alright, so now that we have the joystick back in there, we're going to gently rotate this back into position. Make sure that you don't accidentally misplace your shoulder button. The shoulder button has a little spring on it too, so you're gonna you have to make sure you don't lose that spring. The shoulder button doesn't quite stay into position without the battery compartment over top of it. Excuse me. All right, so let's get our screws back into position. I don't know why I ever thought dropping it was going to work. All right, screw number 2. And screw number 3. All right, so now that we have this all hooked up back together, the next step is to connect the battery back, which on this one is a little bit more of a pain in the butt, just simply because there's a lot of stuff in the way. battery hooked up, we can do a quick check to make sure that the power's working. So we've got our lights. All right, so let's go ahead and gently fold this back together. Again, you have to make sure that you slot this little piece underneath of the plastic as you slide it downward. All right, and this one is a little chunkier, I think. And actually it looks like, let me see if I can zoom in on that. I've actually already replaced the plastic one with a metal one. I'm not sure you can see that little shine right there. See? That's the metal one that I've already put in place on this one. So this one must have already broken at some point. All right, so the last step is to put our 4 Y-wings back into their slots. Again, I recommend that you don't over tighten this top one because it does seem to make the plus button not work if you over tighten it. All right. Okay. I also have a shell coming for the Joycon Pro controller, and I hope you guys will join me for that video as well, because I plan to take apart the Joycon Pro controller and replace the shell. I got an all-white one with the GameCube notches. I think it's going to be a really cool one. All right, so now that we have both Joy-Cons replaced, let's go ahead and put our nubs on. Woogie said that she wanted the blue one on the blue controller, and she said she wanted the red one on the red controller. All right, and now we're going to test them, because what video would be complete without a test? So here is Woogie's Switch, and as you can see, she was playing Among Us last. And this was the game that actually made us realize that her Joy-Cons were drifting. Software update. All right. So the next step is to go into the system settings and to go down to the controllers and sensors, and then you're going to want to go down to calibrate control sticks. All right, and you're going to click down the control stick you want to calibrate. All right, and we're going to recalibrate it. All right, and no drift. All right, so now we're going to do the next one. And no drift. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. We have successfully fixed the Joy-Con. And I would like to say that Jess, your kit worked. The only thing in the kit that I would definitely say is probably not up to spec is this. I feel like it chipped very easily, and I mean, it didn't even make it through one repair, I feel like. As for everything else, it definitely seemed to come in handy. I didn't need the extra screws, thankfully, although I did almost lose one. So let's go ahead and put everything back in the kit, including the extra thumb grips that we don't need. Now these are going in the trash. They're no good. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video on the Joy-Con repair. I really just wanted to fix Woogie's Switch for Christmas. I want to make sure that she had a seamless, unmitigated Christmas. And I felt like the Joy-Con drift was going to take away from that, so I wanted to make sure that was fixed before she opened up her presents. Thanks for watching, guys, and keep watching. He's a little booty. He's a little booty, aren't you? That's a cute little booty.